Hi, I'm Dr. Anna Guerrero. I'm here at Bethel Park High School for the Career Spotlight Series, and I will be talking about becoming a teacher. Could you tell me, I just want to know a little bit about who my audience is, because obviously if you're a senior, you're going into school next year, and if you're a junior, you're maybe just thinking about what you might want to pursue. Who here are juniors? How many juniors do we have? 3. And then seniors? Are you a sophomore? Sophomore. Oh, and freshman. Oh, great. That's really great, because I think you know, as I'm sure some of you know, I have a son that just graduated, and I have a son who's a junior. And it's really difficult to say to someone who is 14, 15, 16 years old, what do you want to do for the rest of your life? And so I think in my generation, that was a little bit different because you could go to college and have a little bit more time to investigate. Now it's very competitive to get into college, first off, and once you're there, it's a very expensive endeavor. And so you don't really, and I'm sure your parents don't really, want you to spend 2 years trying to just figure everything out and take classes and then go another 4 or 5 years, because it is very expensive. So it's great to think about now what you want to do. I know with education in Pennsylvania, you have a lot of options. Pennsylvania has many colleges that you can go into for education, Pitt being one of them. Most programs in Pennsylvania are 4 years long, whether you're going into school to teach younger kids. One certification is pre-K to 4, one is 4 to 8, and the other one is 7 to 12, and then there's also special ed certifications as well. So most programs, I think besides Pitt and Penn, University of Penn, not Penn State, we are the only programs that are 5-year programs. All of the rest of the programs in the state are 4 years. So you go in, you start to take education courses probably in your freshman year. You also take general education types of courses. Depending on what area you want to go into. If you want to go into elementary, you'll take a lot of different gen eds. If you decide to go into secondary and say you want to be a science teacher, you start to take more of those science classes as opposed to other things. I'm going to talk a little bit about our program because that's where I am. As a teacher, you can come in and take general education courses and then become a part of a program, or you can even graduate and go back to school as a 5th-year student and start to take your teacher certification courses. Okay? So who's interested here in going into teaching with younger kids? In Pennsylvania, it's pre-K to 4. Who's interested in that? Okay, who thinks about junior high kids? So that's 4 to 8. Anybody? And then who thinks about secondary, so high school? Okay, 7 to 12. And if I could just ask you, what area would you like to go into? English, science? English? What do you think?
English.
English? And what are you thinking about? English and history. Did I miss anybody? Okay. All right. So what I was thinking about when I was thinking about what to talk to you about here, you know, you're doing a lot of career series. You can go into a lot of different areas and listen to what people have to say about the jobs that they're in. A lot of times you have opportunities through your counselors to go and job shadow or to have internships. What's interesting about teaching is you really have been watching teachers since you started to come to school, since you started to come as a kindergartner, right? It's not like you're exactly job shadowing them, but you're with teachers more than you're with anyone else, like a pharmacist, a doctor, a nurse, an engineer, right? You're with teachers every day for many months every year for 13 years, right? And what's interesting is I think sometimes when you start to think about becoming a teacher, you might think, well, I see them every day. I know exactly what they do. And I think parents even think that, especially with younger kids. They think, oh, you know, they're teaching kindergartners. It's not a very difficult job. But it really is. It's a difficult job that is very rewarding, and it has times of the year where it's more busy than others. It is nice to be able to work about 9 or 10 months a year. I think, though, there are a lot of other reasons, of course, to go into teaching. One of the difficult things about teaching, I would say, would be you're really, I don't want to say constrained with time as much, like you're behind closed doors or something, but there is that time. There's not a lot of flexibility with your time because you have to come to school at a certain time. You have to be here before the children come in, before the big kids come in this case. You have to be here. You have to be here until they leave. So there's a constraining a bit of time, whereas if you were in an office or doing some other sort of job, you might not have those exact time constraints. So that's something that I found that I actually am a career changer, so I was in a different career before I went back at about 30 to become a teacher. And I found that I was in a career where I was traveling, I was doing a lot of different things, I was able to pretty much set my hours, and when I became a teacher, that was very different. So that, I think, is one of the most difficult parts, and it is something, though, that you get very used to, because your day is, pretty much finished at 4 o'clock, besides, of course, going home and a lot of times doing grading and doing some work at home. That, I think, is almost the only difficult thing. I think the easy thing, or the most rewarding part of it, is you're really, really teaching people to learn new things. You're teaching people to become problem solvers. You're teaching people new knowledge. When you think about walking into any of your classes here in high school that you maybe thought you knew things about, whether that be a biology class, whether that be an algebra class, no matter what class it is, you really didn't know as much when you walked in as when you leave. Also, a lot of times when you're walking into these classes, teachers are exposing you to new things. And so a lot of times what happens in high school especially is it's because of something a teacher said in the class, it's because of something a teacher did with you as an assignment or a project or a book they had you read in English or whatever it may be. And a lot of times I know my students will say that was the turning point for me when I said, I really want to do the same thing with kids too, right? So that, I think, is the most rewarding part. You're opening up this whole world of knowledge to people. And I know, I have 2 teenagers. I know that sometimes you come to school every morning, it's 8 o'clock in the morning and you're tired and you're not so much thinking specifically, oh, I'm going to go and have a whole world of knowledge opened up to me today and I'm going to spend 7 hours and just have this whole world of knowledge opened up. I think what happens a lot of times is you reflect back and realize how much that what you're learning here is setting you up to go to college, whether you're going to become a teacher or not, whatever you're going to be. So people who are teaching from the time that the kids are in pre-K until the time you graduate in 12th grade, you're really, really changing people's lives. I know where I taught for 15 years, and I taught in Dallas, Texas, and I taught in what was a relatively lower socioeconomic area, and I taught bilingual classrooms. So all of my students were Spanish-speaking students. I taught pre-K through 4th grade. I changed around a lot of times because I wanted to teach different age levels. So what I found for me too is I was working with a lot of kids who whose parents had not had a lot of education. So I was teaching them for the first time to want to go on to school, to want to love education, and to want to be educated. And I think that's a really important thing. Because I think, I know I feel this way with my kids being here in this district, and I hope that you appreciate it, especially once you leave. You're in a very nice school district that really, really supports the students. And there are a lot of kids who are not in places like that. There are a lot of kids who are not in areas that they live that's like that. And so as a teacher, if you were in an area like that, you're doing more than just teaching math and teaching social studies and teaching science and reading and English to kids. You're really teaching them a lot about the world and exposing them to a lot of things. Okay? I'm going to just intersperse the questions. Now, does anyone have any question? That's a bit of a general ups and downs of teaching, right? Does anyone have any questions? No questions? Okay. Okay, let me look at this a little bit. One of the questions, we were given some questions that we could address, and one of the questions was, what types of skills or qualities are required to be successful as a teacher, right? So here's what I do with my college students. I'll say, because what I'm doing right now, so I taught for 15 years, and then we moved from Texas to here, and I went back to school to get my PhD in education. And so then for the last 4 or 5 years, I've been teaching at Pitt. And so I'm teaching college students who are becoming elementary and early childhood teachers. I'm in the same school of education where people are coming in to be English teachers and science teachers and social studies and math teachers. But I don't really work with the secondary people. I work with all of the early childhood and the elementary people. So when I have my students in a class in junior year, and we start to talk about personalities and traits of people who become teachers, what I do is this, and what I want you to do. So take 30 seconds and think for a moment. You don't have to share with anybody. Just think for a moment about who was your favorite teacher in grade school, who was your favorite teacher when you were at Neal or at IMS, and who, it's even more difficult in high school because you have so many teachers, and who is one of your favorite teachers here at the high school. So just think for a minute. Who are your favorite teachers? And it shouldn't be the person you felt was the easiest on you. It probably isn't, really. Okay, so you have those people in your mind. So tell me, and you have to participate now, tell me, don't tell me anyone's name, but tell me, when you think back on grade school, tell me some of the traits and some of the personality pieces of that person that you think made that person your favorite teacher.
Caring.
Caring. What else?
Very positive.
A positive person, positive personality, smile on their face when they walk through the door, when you walk through the door. What else? Come on. Think about all your grade school teachers. Who do you remember the most? Don't tell me a name. Just use some adjectives for them. We're going to have Athena answer all the questions. How about respectful? Do you think?
Mm-hmm.
How about, Athena said caring, nurturing as well. You know, a lot of kids are scared to come to school when they first come to school. Nurturing, definitely. What else? Intelligent? Very intelligent. Okay, how about high school? Give me an adjective. How about in high school? When you think about the person or people, there are a lot of teachers in high school, obviously, that you go through. You know, in grade school, you're sometimes with one teacher all day. Welcoming. What else?
Confident.
Confident. Intelligent again. Maybe an expert in their area. They know what they're talking about, right? And I keep bringing back that word respectful, because I think those things are what's really important to being a teacher. You have to be welcoming to everybody. When you learn to become, or when you go to school to be a teacher, and then you have that first job, or even when you're student teaching, because in most programs you'll go out and you'll student teach before you graduate and get your certifications. When you're with kids for the first time, and I know some of you have taken the child development course here, so you have worked with kids, you have to be very respectful of kids. It's very difficult to ask a child to respect you if you're not being respectful as well. We also talk about being authentic, and authentic means being you, being a real person. You don't have to necessarily stand up in front of a classroom of kids, whether they be 4 or 5 years old or 16 years old, and not be you. You know, you should be you. You should let your person come out. And that's usually what students like. I mean, I've certainly talked to my own kids, so you know, that's usually the kind of teacher people like. And it doesn't mean that they have to be easy on you or let you come in late all the time and not have you go to the office to get a little card or something. You know, it's not just that. It's being respectful and being kind and being themselves, not necessarily being a friend to you, because that's not really what a teacher should do. You know, they're not necessarily your friend, but they are someone that you can feel comfortable with, and someone that you can feel that you can go up to and open up to and talk. I know in high school you're obviously talking to teachers in a different way than you were in grade school, but it's still that same caring and that same nurturing. So I think when you think about coming into education and becoming a teacher, you want to make sure that you're open to working with many, many groups of kids, many students. It's a very, very changing world that you're going into, a very different, as we say in education, a very different landscape, very diverse. You'll have kids in your classroom that don't speak English, and they're learning how to speak English. You'll have kids in your classroom that are coming from special education classes and are being included in your classroom. So no matter what grade you decide to teach, you have to be really ready to be open to teaching all kids. And as you know from being in school, all kids don't learn the same, so you have to be very open to trying to tap into how to teach each individual child. Every child learns differently, right? Every child learns how to read differently at a different pace. Every child learns how to multiply and divide at a different pace. And so you have to learn how to see what they're doing and understand why they don't understand what you're saying. Does that make sense? And then figure that out, and I think that's a really important part of being a very good teacher. I know one of the things that we have our students do when they student teach is to look at assessments that they have in the classroom. Look at the tests, right? And I'm not talking about tests like, you know, you sit down and take a midterm or a final exam. I'm talking more about, you know, when you're this high and you're 5 years old, you're taking tests on, do you know your colors? Can you count to 20? Do you know your letters? You know, can you identify letters? Those kinds of assessments. And so what we have students do is look at what those assessments are in a classroom and then look at what the teacher does with the assessments. And so that's what all of your teachers, I know now it's a bit different in high school, but in grade school there are all these assessments, right? And so a teacher should be able to look at it and say, okay, this group of kids needs to work on this group of kids needs to work on that, and they need to work on this, and they need to work on this, so that they can meet the child where they are, right? Because a lot of times, you know, here's the middle of each classroom, of each group, and there are a lot of kids who are here and who are struggling, and there are a lot of kids who are here and who are either in gifted classrooms or very, very intelligent and really needing to be extended. And sometimes it's easy to teach here and sort of forget a little bit about here and forget a little about here. And so I think good teachers learn how to look at all of it and look at each child individually. I know that's hard in high school because your teachers here have 100, 125 kids a day that they're seeing. So that's very different than when you're in grade school and you're seeing 25 kids a day maybe. But it's still, I think, a doable thing to get to know. Your students. There's something I think you always want to think about how much do you get paid, right? How much do you get paid as a teacher? And it sort of depends. A lot of it depends on where you're teaching, what district you're in. It depends on, are you teaching in Pennsylvania or teaching in a different state? All the states, no matter where you go, have different sorts of pay structures. Different districts have different pay structures, of course. You also get paid differently if you come into the district or if you're hired and you have a bachelor's degree or if you have a master's degree. There's different pays for that as well. And so it's hard to say, and I don't know the exact starting pay here, but I would say that we're getting up into like the higher 40s. With master's degrees, you could start in the higher 40s. I think that sometimes the pay, well, I don't think, I know that sometimes the pay for teachers is what sometimes turns people away from going into education. And I think it's a really sad thing because obviously should pay be higher? Yes, but it shouldn't really turn you away from it as well because it does tend to be a pretty stable job. So you know, you can move up. You know, you could move up and go back to school and become a principal if you wanted to, or become a curriculum director or a superintendent, or even you could go off on your own and do some consulting work if you become an expert in an area wherever you're teaching. But in general, I personally don't think the pay is that bad. I think that there are a lot of other jobs out there that students, you know, come out of college and are starting at about $50,000 as well. Students don't come out of college all the time starting to get paid at, you know, $150,000 when you first come out of college, you know. So I don't think, please don't let that deter you. I think that, I was just telling Ms. Smith that I've had students come to me and say, you know, I make really, really good grades, and some of my friends are saying, well, gee, why would you want to go and teach little kids? You could go and you could become an engineer, or you could become a doctor, or whatever. But that is what I think has hurt us in education sometimes, because we need to have really intelligent people teaching kids, really, really intelligent people, because that's, you're teaching kids, so you're starting them off on their path to becoming doctors, engineers, lawyers, whatever it is, and other teachers and professors. And so don't ever let that deter you as well, because I think sometimes people think, oh, well, I could get into XYZ career because of my grades. I think you really have to think about what do you want to do as well, because you want to think about what makes you happy and why would teaching make you happy. And don't just say because you have the summer off, because there has to be a lot of other reasons too, you know, as to why you would like to work with kids. So tell me, those of you, who's had the child development class? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So what's something that you've enjoyed working? What's something you've enjoyed doing with the kids?
Teaching them stuff, obviously.
Right?
Yeah.
But tell me specifically. Athena can't talk anymore because everybody, I do this in college as well. I'll say, okay, somebody else. Tell me, what do you like to do with the little kids? What's fun when you work with them?
It's fun just seeing them like grow and like in the beginning of the year they don't know certain things, and at the end
Right.
like they're ready for like kindergarten
Exactly.
and for the next one.
Right, because these are 4-year-olds, right?
Yeah, 3
Right,
and
3 and 4-year-olds, right. What's something else?
I know, just seeing like their face whenever they realize they like learn something new, like
Mm-hmm.
seeing their expressions and stuff.
Right. Anything else? You want to say anything?
I guess teaching them like the difference between like no and like
Mm-hmm.
special
Mm-hmm. Right. It's a very interesting age. I've taught 4-year-olds before. I taught them a couple of times, 2 years. I taught 4-year-olds. They're fun. They're fun. They're innocent. And what I loved about teaching little kids is they come into school every day and they're so excited to be there, and they're so happy to be there, and they love you every day. Even if you made them mad yesterday and they cried and, you know, pouted when they went home, they still love you tomorrow. You know, they will love you tomorrow. And so I felt that was a really wonderful thing to teaching little ones. I think there's a great part to teaching all the ages, because I know for me, when I went from teaching kindergarten, finishing teaching kindergarten in July, to September I was teaching 22-year-olds. And I even told them at the end of the year, I thought that it wouldn't be the same. And obviously, it's not the same with age, because you have a 5-year-old and a 22-year-old, right? Obviously, very, very different with your interests and everything. But at the end of the year, I did feel the same. And it was great to watch them grow and watch them learn new things and watch them become more confident and watch them when they learn something, or if I went out and observed a teacher, watch them go through a lesson and feel confident and do a really good job. So really, it's almost the same no matter what age I think you're teaching. I think there are those basic premises of being a teacher, that it doesn't really matter what age it is, right? So no matter what age you decide to go into, what age or what area you want to teach, we didn't really even talk a lot about special education. I mean, that's a whole big area as well. I know in Pennsylvania, they've just gone through all these new certification programs over the last about 4 years. So now you either get a certification in pre-K to 4, or 4 to 8, or 7 to 12. You cannot become a special education teacher until you have the other certification. So you have to become a regular gen ed teacher first and get that certification. It doesn't mean you have to teach, but you have to have that certification and that training, and then you can go into special ed. Is that what you were going to ask? Yeah. So then you can go back to school if you want, or some of the programs now with the early childhood, with the elementary, you have that dual certification program. That's what we do. It's a dual certification. So at the same time, you're working on your general ed certification and your special ed certification as well.
At the same time.
We do it at the same time.
Can you talk about some of the challenges that the student teachers have whenever they're just learning to teach?
Yes.
Because I think everyone thinks that they know exactly what a teacher does until
Yes.
they're in front of the classroom.
Exactly.
And then you realize that there are some things that you didn't know.
Right. And that is, I think, one of the, probably one of the most difficult things or challenging things as a student and as a student teacher is realizing that you don't know everything you thought you do, and realizing that you are sort of on stage and you have to be very resilient and you have to be very humble, because people, your supervisor will come and watch you, and your mentor teacher is there all the time because you're student teaching with them. And so you have to be very open to constructive criticism. And it's not because they're saying something to you as a person, they're just looking at your teaching practice and trying to help you to improve things. I know something that that I see all the time, no matter what grade they're teaching, is a student will be working, teaching in front of a group of kids, and a few start to talk over here, and a few start to talk over here, and instead of stopping and practicing some behavior management, they just keep talking and they keep teaching. Where really, as a veteran teacher or as a experienced teacher, you learn, in your classrooms, you can't, if you're being quiet, you can't learn if everybody else is talking. And so behavior management is probably, I think, always the most difficult thing as a student when you're a student teacher, because you walk into someone's classroom, and what I always tell them, it's like you're staying at somebody's house because that's their classroom, and they put their things up on the wall how they want. They have their chairs and tables how they want. So you're walking into someone's classroom and having to assimilate to this environment, usually for about 14 weeks. That doesn't mean you're full-time teaching for 14 weeks, but you have to be in that environment. And what we try very hard, I know, is to help students learn how to work and how to collaborate with a mentor teacher. Because as a student, you might feel upset about something that's going on because it's not the way you like it. But rather than be upset, we try to teach students how to go to the mentor teacher and to learn how to collaborate and to talk about what they have concerns with. I know it's not easy to student teach, and I know at Pitt, for example, in our programs, we have students out student teaching and coming back 2 nights a week for classes. So it's a very, very rigorous program to go through. Not just Pitt, every program is. It's a very rigorous program, because all of a sudden what we try to tell our students as well is you tend to move over into the professional world sometimes as a student teacher before sometimes your roommate is, or your friends that you're going to college with. I think internships are very big now in a lot of areas. So, if you're going into physical therapy, you're going into engineering, a lot of different areas, you're going to have internships. So you might have friends at college or roommates or whatever who are also going out and doing internships. But a lot of times you might not. So all of a sudden you're a senior in college and your last year, and you want to have all this fun, but you're getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning to go to school. As you see your teachers, as you've seen them all through the years, you're staying on that same schedule that the teacher is. So you tend to move over as a senior in college, you tend to move over into the professional world a little earlier sometimes, and with a lot of responsibility. Sometimes you have to be very, very careful. I will tell you this from right now. You need to be really, really careful, and I know you've heard it before, but about what you put out online, what you do on Facebook. I don't even know all the names to everything. Twitter, everything. You have to be very, very careful now of what you have out there. We tell our students that when they start to work with kids in their practicum or their student teaching, that they should just take everything down. Because what happens is, if you go in and you're a student teacher in kindergarten with, all these 5-year-olds, the parents will Google you. The parents will look you up and find out who you are, because you're there, and you probably have clearances and everything, because you have to have clearances to go in to teach. But they still want to know who you are, and not just kindergarten, all the grades. People want to know who's working with my child, right? I'm sure your parents have done the same thing with students. Maybe not so much in high school all the time, but definitely in grade school. People want to know who's working with my child. So it's really, really important that you have a very, hate to say it this way, but a very clean record, because it's one of those jobs that is not that forgiving with if you have if they find things that you've done that are a bit off color, shall we say. That's the best way to say it.
We have about
What's the time?
3 to 4 minutes left.
Okay.
So if there's any questions
Okay.
or anything else that
Any questions?
you want to
Yeah.
cover, the students have, I just wanted to let you know.
How about, who wants to go into secondary? 1, 2, 3. So do you have any questions? Because I tend to talk a little bit more about early childhood.
Do you have any dual programs?
Yes,
like that?
we do. And I don't know about other colleges, but we do. At Pitt, if you want to go into secondary, it's a really good program that they just started last year. It's called Mosaic. And you get what you do is you go through 4 years and you get a degree in whatever area you want. So you would get a degree in English or history or poli-sci, for example, or math or science. And then you come in the 5th year and you work you student teach in, say, an English high school classroom and a special ed classroom in high school as well. Having that special ed background is really important now, because there's so much inclusion, and they want teachers, that's why they want teachers who are becoming special ed teachers to also have a content background. So you know both, and you can differentiate, and you can work with all kids. Right? Any other questions for secondary?
What language majors are there?
Language? I think Pitt's really huge with their languages department, so you could have anything like your common German, French, Spanish, but then there's also Italian and Chinese and Japanese. There's a lot of majors at Pitt. So it is, we have a big foreign language department as well. So again, like that, you would major in a language, and then you would go into foreign language and learn how to be a foreign language teacher with that language that you majored in. Okay, and you wanted English as well, right? Okay, great. Any other questions? What I've given to you is the elementary programs are in the folder, and then I brought along some of the information for the secondary programs. So before you leave, just come to me if you're interested in secondary, and I'll find the appropriate secondary program for you. Okay? All right. Thank you so much. I'm really happy that you want to be teachers. It's a very important job. Maybe the most important, right? Thank you.
What do you think of the Career Spotlight series that we're doing here at Bethel Park School District?
I think it's wonderful, because I have 2 kids as well, one who just graduated, one who's a junior in high school, that I've encouraged them to attend, and attend as many as you can, because it's great to go out and job shadow someone, but it's great also to first hear about that particular job or that particular career, and decide, do I want to go out and job shadow? Do I want to go out and try to have an internship? So this is your first chance to hear about different careers.
When you're talking to high school age kids about careers, do you find most of them have absolutely no idea what they want to do, and this is where they're just learning, experimenting, trying to figure out what they want to do with their life?
I think To me, I feel like it's almost 50-50. I think that there are a lot of students, a lot of kids out there who, even at 14, 15 years old, really have a good feel for what they want to do. Or they're in that time period of 15, 16, sophomore, junior, senior year where they change from one to the next to the next. But by the time they get to be a senior, I think a lot of students really know this is what I want to pursue. I think there are a lot of kids who have absolutely no idea. But I do think it's about 50-50 because I think a lot do realize that they need to come into college knowing
Right.
from day one what they want to try to do because they want to make the best use of their time. And so take those general education courses in the beginning and not take something that might not qualify for a major or for a degree.
Well, with the cost of education now on to college, a 4-year college degree and so forth, you don't have that luxury of years ago where you could go for 2 years undecided what. But even in talking to the students, do you find that there's numerous students that maybe not college is up their alley and there's other things out there for them?
I think so. I obviously work only with college students, but I do think that there was an idea in our society over the last, say, 10 years that you have to go to college. I mean, you see programs, college ready and all that sort of thing. But I think that there are a lot of kids who, it's not so much that they're not intelligent enough to go to college, but they just don't want to. They want to pursue a different degree, or a different field of study, I should say. And so there are a lot of opportunities for kids to do that, and sometimes I don't know if we encourage that as much as well. I think if no one went into all of these other different fields, what would we do, right?
Well,
So
how do you find that at University of Pittsburgh, when you're teaching there, that you have kids that after a year or two of being in college that they are leaving and I don't want to say have wasted a couple years of their life, but find that it really isn't what they want?
I have not found that.
Okay.
I've only had, in 5 years, I've only had 2 students decide they did not want to go into the education program that they were in, but they still wanted to work with kids. So they moved over into this other program that we have, and it prepares kids to go on to counseling or to go on to child life specialist programs or things like that. But I haven't really lost any students. So
Good.
It's been nice. I think that we have them go out into the field so much that they do get a taste from the beginning. Do I want to do this or not? And so that helps them.
This Career Spotlight series that we're doing here at Bethel Park, is this unique for Bethel Park, or are you finding this at any other school districts or asking you to come and talk?
I haven't had anyone else, come to ask me to talk, but I do think that some of the school districts in Western Pennsylvania who are known to be more of the school districts preparing students really well, I think that they do something like this.
And do you think this series is important
Oh,
for preparing?
definitely, definitely. And I think that as much as we can help them, through counseling or through this series, to know where to go and look, because a lot of kids don't even go to schools. They don't do those like visits in the junior year to go to colleges and see what they have to offer, because you really should probably choose a college based on what you want to study.